Members, good afternoon. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. Let's invite the government officials to join us first. We had a last meeting on March 31st. The government provided a written reply to the concerns raised by members last time. Members, please refer to paper CB bracket 1334/2023 bracket 02. Once the government officials are ready, we will ask them to walk us through, and then we will proceed to the questions and answer session. Members, please note that Mr. Tony TSE wrote to us LC CB 397 bracket 2023 bracket 01. The government will provide a written response later. This is a letter from Mr. Tony TSE dated April 25th. That's today. Welcome, the government. Welcome to the meeting today on the bill, the Product Eco-Responsibility Amendment Bill 2023. This is the Bills Committee meeting discussing this bill. So for the government, you responded to the matters arising from the last meeting. Please walk us through the paper. Last time, members focused on the plastic products that the government proposes to ban, and also the alternatives. Members talked about the market supply, etc. for those alternatives. So can we get a response from Mr. Kenneth Cheng, Assistant Deputy Director of Environmental Protection? Chairman, good afternoon. We had a last meeting last time, and then in response to members' requests, we provided information on disposable plastic tableware. We provided information on a cost comparison of these alternatives and the plastic tableware, and also information on how widely available are such alternatives. Now, for this legislative exercise, our colleagues, a market survey last year on plastic tableware. We also met with the suppliers and also did Zoom sessions. So we provided a cost comparison. That's in Annex A of the paper. So here's what we see. For the products that we propose to regulate under Phase 1, the disposable plastic tableware, straws, stirrers, cutlery being forks, knives, spoons, and plates, the non-plastic alternatives, when you compare that with the plastic counterparts, and you look at the cheapest options out there, the costs are comparable. The price difference is less than 10 cents. So the prices are roughly the same. Now turning to the availability of the alternatives. Our market survey shows this locally and in the mainland. Nearly 50 suppliers provide alternatives to disposable plastic tablewares, straws, stirrers, cutlery. So for stage 1, we propose to ban certain tableware. At that stage, the price and the availability of alternatives are not a problem in the mainland and also in the major economies across the globe. the market is rapidly growing when it comes to the alternatives to plastic tableware. So there's a stable supply, and we believe prices will be going down. Now, for stage 2, we will be regulating the plastic cups, the cup lids, food containers, and the covers of the food containers. Now, the cost comparison. For the alternatives, there are only a limited number of suppliers of these alternatives. And then turning to the cost comparison, let's compare the cheapest options out there, the plastic versus the non-plastic alternatives. The price difference is more obvious. 12 to 68 cents. That's the price difference we're looking at. So we will cover these products in phase 2. We will keep an eye on how the market of these alternatives develops, and then we will come up with a time for implementing phase 2 of our regime. For other disposable plastic products, we're looking at a wide variety of products. For tableware, you can look at alternative forks and knives. And then for the other plastic product, then you're looking at a much wider variety of product. So in Annex B, you can see some typical alternatives. Where applicable, we provide a cost comparison too. So members can refer to Annex B to our paper. I welcome questions and comments from members. Thank you. I now open the floor to questions from members. Please press the request to speak button if you want to ask questions. Each member gets 5 minutes. First, Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the government for providing the information in response to our request, especially the information on the price. But apart from the cost, there is something else that's also important. This bill focuses on disposable and non-reusable products. At the last meeting, I raised this very same question. The government has explained the matter, and then there's a supplementary paper. But I'm still wondering about this. When a product is not reusable by design, you treat that as single-use product. So if something is not reusable by design, you treat that as disposable. Do you have any objective criteria for making that decision? Now here, the information says you can have different kinds of plastic, PET, polylactic acid, and also silicon plastics. But then the paper says that you're looking at plastic tableware that is not reusable by design. So my question is, do you have any objective criteria for that? Do you have, say, criteria applied overseas? Do they have a clear definition of what we mean by disposable plastic? We're just calling something disposable just because something is broken easily. But you can have sturdier plastic. People can use that plastic multiple times. And now the government proposes a ban on such products. We need a more scientific definition. You can't just arbitrarily point to something and call that disposable. And when this bill is passed, a producer can claim that a certain product is reusable, something that can be used for more than once, and try to claim exemption. So I want to clarify the legislative intent and the legal basis of this bill. We don't want to have officers arbitrarily designating something as single-use or disposable. So is a product label saying something is reusable good enough for an exemption? Mr. Kenneth Chang. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the member for his question. On definition, in drafting this bill, we have looked at the legislation in place overseas. Most places adopt similar wording that we use. So they call something plastic when this product has an intended use or a design that is not reusable. We've looked at the legislation in Wales. The wording is similar. They don't specify the materials. Now, on the question of whether a producer can claim an exemption by calling its product reusable, so we have to consider the use or the intended use. The producer may claim the product is to be used in a certain way, but then when an average person looks at the product and does not consider that product as reusable, then that's a different story. The average consumer looks at the product and does not consider that to be reusable. So we're talking about the understanding of an average person. When this person looks at the product, that's how we tell what we mean by disposable. Now, we have brought along with us some samples of alternatives. So if the Secretariat could help us pass around the products to show the members. So please show us the product. Chairman, can the government give us more specific answers? Now, we don't want to avoid a situation where the government uses subjective wording in drafting the law, something that feels brittle. When you go to fast food chains, the tableware looks sturdy. You're referring to the tableware, so we can take these samples as a demonstration and show us what you mean by disposable and what's not. So it's not just about us at this meeting. People also want to know what's going on at this meeting. They want to find out what you mean by disposable plastic tableware. Chair, his samples are the alternatives. But the government has not addressed my point about fragility.
To supplement on what I have just said, in replying Mr. Chan's question, we'll be looking at the design use, the purpose of the product, whether it's reusable or it's just disposable. So the point is, it doesn't follow that if a product can be reused many times, then it's reusable. Or if a claim is made that it's reusable, then we would say it's reusable. It's not that. We are not going to allow this gray area or loophole to be exploited. These are alternatives to disposable incomes. Just by looking at them, you don't feel that it's disposable. It's meant to be used only one time, and it can be reused. So that's in relation to the definition. But that's a crucial point here. We want to use as little plastic as possible. But we don't want to have a loophole for manufacturers, because if they are manufacturing disposable incomes, and then because of the new law, they would increase the strength. And then the product can be used 2 times, 3 times, etc., etc. The consumer can, of course, say no to such products. But if there's no objective scientific definition in the law specifying which products are to be banned, if you don't have a definition based on the design, then you cannot avoid a situation whereby someone distributes a product which can be used for more than one time. So what can you do then? Can you test the strength of the material to prove that it cannot be used for more than, say, 2 or 3 times? I don't want to have such ambiguity in the law. I defer to my colleague, Ms. Young. So the question is, under what circumstances would we regard such products to be disposable? In the beverage industry, the definition is more clear-cut. When distributed, the intention is for the product to be used only once. And in the retail sector, we will come up with some guidelines. For example, party products packed in a bag, many plastic items packed in a bag for partying. They will be meant for disposable or one-time use. We would issue such guidelines for the tray. The intention is to use fewer plastic, go plastic-free. We hope that through such guidelines, that we would inform the trade that in the eye of the public, these are disposable products, and the trade should follow that. I can understand party products, but if it's a very well-built container and rather robust cutlery, can they claim the waiver just saying that they are not for one-time use? Well, for the material, we look at the price, the packaging, whether it's a number of products packed in a bag. If it's a reusable product, usually it will not come in a bag mixed with other products. So we would ascertain the intention that this is for one-time use and it's a disposable product. We'll come up with some cases for the trade to make reference to. Well, I'm concerned that for the sake of improving their business turnover, some caterers may be concerned that by not providing the cutlery, that they will not be able to attract more customers. So can they just claim that the products, the cutlery they issued are for multiple use and they can get away with it? Well, it's not that we would take the claim at face value. It would depend on the product itself. When someone go to a supermarket and buy some items, and just using common sense, you can judge whether it's meant to be disposable or not. And that's why in many other jurisdictions, the definition of disposable plastic products would be based on intended use or design. You cannot really come up with a standardized formulation of the manufacturing method or material use, because if we go down that rigid definition, they can easily circumvent the restriction. Chairman, once this law is enacted, then we need to both enforce the law and educate the public. Can we learn from other places or successful prosecution cases in other places that of so-called fragile items or products will be regarded as disposable? Can we have a case law from other jurisdictions? Or we don't have the information, Chairman. Can you get us some information after the meeting? So have you looked at other jurisdictions in your research? You don't have the information. You're not saying that you haven't looked into that. Well, we can certainly try to get some information after the meeting. You try to do that. Well, that's the disappointing, because that's a natural question to ask. It's curious that you haven't done so. Please supply the supplementary information later. All right, so we have spent quite a long time on this, but this has to do with the definitions. Mr. Andrew Lam, when they provide information on other jurisdictions, I would like to differentiate the relevant cases as common law cases and non-common law cases, because the approach will be different. Yes, we want to go plastic free. Or maybe in some of the examples, you have listed some examples. We use the schedule. As the starting point. Theoretically, we know the amount of products that we have imported. We'd like to get some figures on the quantities so that we know the environmental problem caused by these disposable products, and we can come to some objective assessment of the scale of the problem. As regards the plastic products that we are going to regulate, the import and export are not regulated at present. So as for the quantities of imported products, we don't have such information, but we do know that plastic products accounts for 20% of the waste disposed, and for cutlery it's 10% of the total. But for the imported plastic products, we are not regulating such products import, so we have no data. For so-called normal disposable income, I'm not very concerned. We can take a tougher stand. But for products related to healthcare, they might be a concern. If we cannot quantify the issue, I don't know whether you can try harder to get some objective data, because in between the two phases, you are going to make reference to certain statistics So if you don't have the statistics now, you may consider try to get a sum, maybe not 100% accurate, but you need some data. So do we. Well, yes, in the bill, we do provide a waiver for healthcare related plastic products. We'll try to get some information on the quantities available in the market. For example, the toothpaste, plastic toothpaste. There may not be any alternative. Or dental floss sticks, there may not be many alternatives. Well, last time we talked about the non-medical use transparent gloves, which will be used in food processing, etc. For hygienic reasons, they need to use such gloves. Last time we show some concern. Perhaps you can update us today. Last time, concern was expressed about the use of non-medical use transparent gloves. They are made of latex, which will not be regulated under the law, which, of course, this is an alternative. For the use of bakery, some would offer no gloves, or they can use disposable gloves if they want. You haven't answered our questions. Last time, a member said that realistically speaking, in the food processing industry, the use of transparent gloves is sometimes necessary, and they cannot use very thick gloves because of the lack of tactile feedback. So last time you couldn't answer the question, but I don't think the answer today is satisfactory to members.
Chair, for alternatives. We put some products under stage 2 of the regulation because we know that for these alternatives, they may not be able to meet our needs 100%. They cannot fully replace our existing plastic product. That's why some products fall under phase 2. We want to listen to further views from the community. We want to look out for better alternatives, if any. So as you say, some people choose to bake without gloves. If it's your mom, then it's fine. Nobody has objections. But then at the restaurant setting, people bake for customers. Many workers prepare the food. How to ensure hygiene in the process? Then it's only natural that people want to put on gloves. There are latex gloves. Now, people would find it mind-boggling if they are asked to put on thick gloves to prepare the food. As you said, some products fall under phase 2. But then you cannot take an approach where it's like, let's cross the bridge when we come to it. You have to offer a practical solution. Next, Ms. Yan Chen. We need to go plastic-free. Our questions have turned on enforcement, on potential ambiguities in enforcement. We are looking for ways to spell out the rules clearly so that people don't have to wonder whether they are falling foul of the rules. Now, so we have asked about what it means by plastic and what it means by disposable. I showed you a comb last meeting. Chairman, you also showed a plastic comb. It snaps easily, but then hotels offer foldable plastic combs these days. Now I want to talk about the cotton buds. Some of the stems are made of plastic, others made of bamboo. There are alternatives made of paper or bamboo. So I went to restaurants. Now you have this toothpick made of bamboo, but then it's wrapped with plastic. It's wrapped in plastic, so this goes against the spirit of going plastic free. We saw what you showed us as alternatives, but then at some restaurants, look at this cotton bud. The cotton bud itself has a stamp made of something other than plastic, but then it's wrapped in plastic. So this should not be allowed under our bill. So the stamp itself is fine. So there's a reason that restaurants give you the cotton buds in the ladies' washroom. The restaurants offer these cotton buds. They are from Hong Kong restaurants. Now let's turn to the dental floss. The stamps will be fall under phase 2. No sale, no free distribution. So I picked up this dental floss in a paper bag, but then at a different restaurant, they give you the dental floss in a plastic bag. So even when you have a dental floss with a stem made of wood, you cannot allow the plastic bag. And then in my other hand, I have this dental floss in paper bag. So we have to be clear when we draw the line. Now, phase 1 covers a sale ban. Chairman, you just mentioned plastic gloves. It's fine if we prepare food at home without gloves. But then some places give out the gloves for free. They give you the glove to eat the chicken. But then when you ban the sale, say I go to baking classes, I need to pick up gloves. It's about the hygiene. But the proposal covers a ban on the sale of plastic gloves. So can we get the government to think this through? For gloves for non-medical purposes, should we have a ban on distribution instead of a ban on sale? In a table, in the paper, for hotels, the plastic packaged tissue paper for promotional use will fall under phase 1. So why be so specific for promotional use? You can have promotional messages on the plastic package. Why don't just ban hotels from giving out packaged tissue paper across the board? Why just ban the packaged tissue paper for promotional use only? Why not simply ban tissue paper in plastic packages given out for free? When you say it has to be for promotional use, then you can have a row over whether something is for promotion or not. Can we be clearer in the provisions in the bill? Mr. Kenneth Chang. I thank the member for her questions. We're talking about the plastic material that a product is made of. For plastic packaging, that falls outside the scope of this bill. And we know packaging is close to the heart of many members and many members of the public. We will have other ways to deal with the plastic packaging of products. So to answer the first question, plastic packaging falls outside the scope of this bill. Now turning to gloves. gloves will fall under phase 2 of the regime. There will be a ban on sale and free distribution. I've noted members' comment and we will consider the comment. Now, on plastic packaged tissue paper for promotional use. We're not just looking at the promotional tissue paper at hotels. Back then, people would buy newspapers, and then the newspaper would come in a plastic bag, and then in that bag, there's a pack of tissue paper. We want to target that situation. Chairman, a follow-up question. On cotton buds. We don't want disposable plastic product. That's our goal. But then you go to a washroom, you rarely see cotton buds made of non-plastic product. They don't come in large quantities. If you do not regulate the plastic packaging, then the plastic packaging will be used extensively. Look, I have these two examples, cotton buds in different colors. This is what I found in the ladies' washrooms at restaurants. It's good to have a cost comparison of the plastic products versus their alternatives. But then the cost comparison is based on products that come in large quantities in wholesale settings. But you have to be mindful of the products that are available out there in the market. If you have 200, 300 cotton buds put together, I won't even use them because I'm not sure if they are hygienic. And now you have to consider where do they give out cotton buds for free? Restaurants and hotels, the pack of toiletries. Leaving out the plastic packaging sits oddly with our legislative intent of reducing disposable plastics. This is something the government should consider. It's very common to have ladies' washrooms at restaurants to give you cotton buds in plastic packaging. Maybe the gentleman here won't be aware of this. That's why I'm bringing up this point. I'm showing you these two examples. This is something the government should consider. When people use cotton buds like these, there is plastic. For every cotton bud you use a plastic bag. Even cake toppers are regulated. But then the plastic packaging here does much greater harm. We have to target these packaging. So this is something the government should consider incorporating into the scope of regulation. I believe the point is noted. Next, Mr. Perry, you. Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. This bill will have implications for the retail sector and the hotel sector. The trades have concerns. First, alternatives. Second, the cost of the alternatives. Third, the supply. Do we have a steady supply of alternatives? For the products to be regulated under stage 1, things are fine. But then some in the trade are telling me there will be a surge in demand when stage 1 kicks in. There will be a shortage of alternatives and prices will soar. So can the government tell us more about the supply of alternatives? What steps will the government take to address possible shortages in the supply of alternatives? The second point, it has to do with the alternatives for toiletries. Now, the plan is to charge the guests a fee for the toiletries. So if people want to use toothpastes, toothbrushes, combs, etc. made of plastic, they have to pay. So when this bill is passed, such toiletries can only be provided for a fee. The guests we ask for such products. Now, of course, hotels support going plastic-free. They want to provide alternatives, non-plastic alternatives to their guests instead. But the hotels are worried. It's about the costs of these alternatives and whether the supply will be stable. Can the government provide us with further information on the supply of alternatives by the next meeting, so that the sector, the trade, can be better informed about the situation? Mr. Kenneth Chang. Ms. Joanne Yong will tell us more about the supply of alternatives. Thank you. We did a market survey last year. We surveyed more than 50 suppliers. 48 suppliers will be able to provide alternatives in stage 1. We provided this cost comparison, and the information they provide is already reflected in our response. We have many suppliers. These suppliers include 18 major suppliers in Hong Kong. The market coverage of these suppliers is over 80% of the market. Now, given there are so many suppliers, it's very unlikely there will be a shortage of alternatives. So that's not a concern. The supply comes from the mainland. The mainland is actually ahead of us in this regard. They have a huge market. From what we've heard from suppliers, they are ready. Follow-up questions? We just went on this mainland visit. We stayed at the hotel. The hotels showed us that there was a rule that kicked in 2022. The alternatives are available made of wood. We hope that these alternatives can be supplied at a steady pace to Hong Kong when this bill is passed, so that we can minimize the impact on the trade. Now it's my turn. I have some questions. First, on phase 1, the toiletries, or rather the plastic bottled water to be provided by hotels. It's a very basic service, bottled water in hotel rooms. Hotel rooms come with kettles. You can boil the water. But how many guests actually take the time to boil the water? Now, for the alternatives for plastic bottles, the people think of glass. But then we want to minimize the use of glass as well. Otherwise, we would not have passed a bill on glass bottles. So hotels are left in a bind. A ban on the free distribution on bottled water. Then there's a question. Going green is not about paying a fee. So let's take a more practical approach. Let's avoid using plastic. Let's avoid consuming bottled water. But then if you ask hotels not to provide bottled water, that will cause inconvenience for guests. Now, how about charging people for a fee? The issue is not about the fee. But then the point is you're causing inconvenience to the guests. The guest may not have used any paid service and they leave the hotel because they have paid the room rates ahead and then they can leave anytime. So there are all these issues during hotel operation that the government should consider. Of course, we want to go plastic free. Let's avoid getting hung up over the fine points. We should have the big picture in mind. tableware makes up a huge part of the plastic products out there. We talked about the point last time, the cake toppers. Of course, there are alternatives. Now you can have toppers made of chocolate instead. And for the holders of candles, if you cannot think of anything else, and you can put the candle straight into the cake and just steer clear of the part of the cake that comes into contact with the candle. The question is, how much plastic is involved when you look at cake toppers? Is it worthwhile to ban the use of plastic cake toppers? Is that going to be disruptive for people? Now, the government also said that no more plastic packaged tissue paper for promotional use. Now, if the plastic is bad, simply ban the plastic packaging. Whether something is for promotional use is beside the point. A hotel gives out the tissue paper and the package may come with the name of the hotel, so that's promotion. Now, of course, hotels offer boxes of tissue now. And then on the street, people give out packaged tissue for promotional use. The right approach is to ban the use of plastic packaging. This point about for promotional use is tricky. You ban the use of plastic packaged tissue paper for promotional use. People simply use packaged tissue paper not for promotional use. People will still have to be using tissue paper. So the point is, how much plastic is generated under each product. People support the idea. But then I'm amazed at how you manage to come up with so many fine points. How many birthday cakes do people consume each year? In relation to the cake toppers, of course, we want to minimize the use of plastic as much as possible. But do you have to be so obsessive with the fine points about the cakes? That's something I find mind-boggling.
Thank you for your questions and your comments, Chairman. The regulation of bottled water and toiletries in hotel, we're not banning the use. We're just banning free distribution. This is because that we have borne in mind the operation of a hotel is not really feasible to ban. But we just want to change the mentality that since it's distributed free, people would use more. Of course, we very much hope that the hotel we can offer non-plastic alternatives. But if they have to provide bottled water or other plastic products, if it's charging service, then the guests, the hotel guests, would use such products prudently because they have to pay for them. It's just like the plastic shopping bag levy, although it's not a big amount. If you have to pay for the product, then the guests would only consume the plastic bottled water when it's necessary. During the consultations with the hotels and their representatives, they are all supportive. Many hotels have actually informed us that they have made all the preparations. For example, the bottled water would be put to other use after the water is consumed. And sometimes they have water stations installed for refilling water bottles. So that's what we want to do. No, we do not go for prohibition, but for banning free distribution, so that people will not use such free products indiscriminately. Members, other members, Ms. Chan Hoi-yan, I have a follow-up question. We have two phases. In the first phase, we ban sale and free distribution in respect of certain products. We should go for the products which are used more extensively. For example, we do not have any comment on the umbrella beds, which are given by the shopping malls. Now they have the dryers, drying rack provided for wet umbrellas instead. Last time I asked a question about birthday cake toppers. Yes, they are plastic, and people would dispose of such plastic toppers, but the quantity is not big. Well, of course, you can use chocolate as alternative. We want to go for plastic products which are more extensively used. Then you can win public support more easily. I have doubts whether we should regulate cake toppers as also related to gloves. Perhaps you should ban free distribution instead of banning both sale and free distribution. But it seems that having heard our comments, you still insist on your original approach. Thank you for your questions. You may think that certain items are rather trivial, such as cake toppers. Well, actually, before the consultation exercise, or before our consultation exercise, the Sustainability Council did a survey. The Council on Sustainable Development has given us advice. Yes, these products may not be generating a lot of plastic waste, but they are not indispensable, and there are alternatives to plastic products. So why not go for non-plastic alternatives? That's the views that we have collected from the consultation exercise. I mean, of course, members' views will also be fully considered, whether we can go for a better regulatory approach if the quantities are small. As for public consultation, when I talk to my friends about the banning of cake toppers, no one said that they have been consulted about that, because we're talking about serious work here, the scrutiny of this bill. We are talking about many categories, many types of plastic products, and there's a need to strike the right balance. And that's why some members have advised you to go for major items in the first phase, so that the regulation in the second phase will be more acceptable to the public. That's what I feel. I don't know whether members here agree with me, but I think the Bills Committee should look at the bigger picture. Our comments are not meant to be criticism of the work of the work carried out by your colleagues. But I think that one should not have the mentality that nothing can be changed. Otherwise, this bills committee cannot function. Very often, after our discussion, the government would say, "Oh, we agree that so that we'll move amendments to the bill," or sometimes members will move amendments as well. I hope this principle that I've talked about will be supported by both sides. Mr. Judy Chan, while we are talking about cake toppers, I wonder if you also include the plastic or wrapping around the cake. It's a wrapping material for the cake so that the cake looks nicer and more robust. Well, we very much support this bill. It's a trend that we all welcome. We go plastic free. It's just that we don't want to create controversies in the community. Last time I asked some questions about plastic bottled water. Apart from hotels, some restaurants also give away bottled waters. And last time, the government said this time the ban would apply to hotels. But for tissue paper, you also banned newspaper stands from doing the same. So my question is, why do you only ban bottled water, plastic bottled water provided by hotels, but not by restaurants? But when you ban plastic packaged tissue paper, you ban both hotels and newsstands. Well, for the wrapping of the cake, and there's also a base made of plastic container. So would that be also banned as cake toppers? Well, when we talk about cake toppers, we're talking about something on top of the cake. Say, for example, a little card or a little figurines for a birthday cake. As for the plastic wrapping material or the plastic container, they're outside the scope of the bill because they are more of a packaging material in nature. As for restaurants giving away plastic bottled water, again, this falls outside the scope of the bill because the banning of eateries, cutlery will already affect them.
So members are calling for some adjustments to your proposal. So even for restaurants handing out bottled water, the restaurants should be charging. Now, of course, some may disagree, but then there has to be something that you should be doing. Now, of course, Ms. Judy Chen, now we don't have to be so rigid with the provisions. So can we have a kind of deposit and return system? The guest returns the bottle to the hotel. You can treat that experience as a kind of education. So the guests have to pay for the bottle of water, and then when the guest returns the bottle, some of that money is refunded. That way we can avoid having the plastic bottle ending up in landfill. One feasible option, as the government has mentioned, is to have a reusable glass bottle. The hotel provides the bottled water, not the disposable glass bottle. That's one possible way. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Chairman, I support the bill's directions. But let's look at how the bill will be implemented. There are details we should be mindful of. For me, I need to tell the general public why some products will be banned and why others aren't. I struggle with that as the bill stands now. So I'm asking the government for help. Tell us where you draw the line when it comes to enforcement. You sort it out, the enforcement in the future will be easier. So can the government try harder at this? So that's a comment from Mr. Andrew Lam. I think that's clear. Any other questions from members? Today, the government has addressed some of the concerns raised by members last time on alternatives, but other concerns and questions remain unanswered. So members raised further questions and made further comments. But we have discussed the overall policy, and we're still looking forward to some responses on particular fine points. The government has to come up with practical responses. Some areas require further regulation in the long run. What falls under stage 1, what falls under stage 2, and when should a fee apply? These are points for the government to take note of. These are the members' comments, and we would like a response. If there are no further questions on policy, I do not propose to start the clause-by-clause scrutiny. This Saturday, April 29th at 9 a.m., we will have a deputational hearing on this bill. As said yesterday, a total of 14 deputations and individuals signed up for the hearing. We have also received written submissions. As per the customary practice of bills committees, we try to listen to the public views before proceeding to the clause-by-clause scrutiny. Some of the things we hear during the hearing will be very helpful for our clause-by-clause scrutiny, so we can then consider the comments from the public. That's why I do not propose to start the clause-by-clause scrutiny today. Anything from the legal advisor? Nothing from me, thank you, Chairman. The legal advisor has written to the government, but we will address those points when we get into the clause-by-clause scrutiny. Chairman, I will seek clarification from the government when we get to the clause-by-clause scrutiny. So members, please note. Please attend the hearing this Saturday at 9 a.m., the deputational hearing. It will be shorter than expected. We did not know how long it would take, so we set aside the entire morning. But then now we will expect 14 deputations and individuals. Now we take into account the time needed by the government to provide a response. I believe we can wrap up the hearing in a couple of hours. So please be punctual, Saturday, 9 a.m. Anything from the government? No? I will adjourn the meeting here. Thank you.